Hi everyone, welcome to Access. We will start Access with just a brief PowerPoint presentation which you will find on D2L. That's an explanation of what databases are all about. Now in Chapter 1 we will go into usage of a database. So if you have a database, how do you save it? How do you open it? What are the objects? What are the different tabs on the ribbon? And how does it differ from Excel? Okay, so to get started, please make sure first that you have looked at the PowerPoint and you're familiar with what databases do and the little things about databases which you might not have covered in any other course. Chapter 1 on Access has very simple features within Access, but very, very important. Now, I'm going to start with a scenario. We have a database here with us, as you can see, and it's a database related to a video store. Imagine that you have been hired by the owner of the Frankie's video store to help him inventory his movies. Now, you will see in the database itself right here that you have some tables. This is your navigation pane, the left part of your screen. So at the moment I have the Home tab selected. I'm going to now select the Create tab, which is not something you've seen in any other application. It's very unique to Access. We have external data, and then we have database tools. This too is very unique to Access. So when you click on your Home tab, you look at your Home ribbon. At the moment, it's all grayed out because we have nothing in the main section of our database screen. If I go to Create, you have a very unique ribbon under the Create tab, unlike all of your other programs that you might have done. In the Create ribbon, you now have groups for tables, queries, forms, reports, macro, and code. This is an application parts icon, which we will learn about down the road. So that's your Create. In external data involves importing and exporting. Therefore, you have a group for importing, you have a group for exporting. Those are the two major sections of your external data tab. The next tab here is Database Tools. Database Tools includes the ribbon. You will also use from here, well, the relationships group, and the relationships feature is the most important. You will also use the Analyze group, which is database documenter, analyzing performance, and analyzing a table. We will also use Access database, how to move, share, and add add-ins. Compact and repair a database, just a click. It'll give you possible discrepancies within the relationships of your table. Relationships are the most important feature in your database. Relationships make databases different to Excel. Within a database, you build relationships between different tables and objects of your database. For example, in this database, which is Frankie's video store database, you have tables for categories, so movie categories, formats, movies, and ratings. These are the 4 tables that are currently set up in this database. Here, under the relationships, we have all of those tables. As you can see, each of these is a table. So we have a movies table, we have formats table, ratings, and categories. These are these have relationships. Each of these has a link to the movies table. The movies table is your main table here. It has all the information that these tables need. Therefore, they have a link of a one-to-many. A one-to-many relationship here is the important link to remember. Okay, we will talk extensively about relationships, but not in the first class. I'm now going to close our relationship window here by clicking the close. These are, yeah, right. I haven't made any changes, so I'm going to say no. But if I had, I would have to save those changes in order for them to work within the different database objects. So I say no right there. Now, let's talk a little about the navigation pane here. We have looked at the ribbon. The File tab is very different to others, so I will go back to it a little later. Let's first start with the navigation pane. As you can see, you have objects within your table. The objects are tables, queries, forms, reports, macros, and modules. We will be talking and learning extensively about tables, queries, forms, and reports. We will touch on macros, but we will not be touching on modules. So we'll be doing a good 90% of what an Access database gives us. Now, in your navigation pane, at the moment, I have my navigation pane set up to show all Access objects. Okay, so all Access objects, it's showing all that I have in my database. This little arrow right here is where you can change this. I'm going to click on it, and here it gives you the different views that you can change your navigation pane to. I currently have it as all Access objects. So object type. So these are the two main categories: navigation, navigate to category, and filter by group. I want it to all Access objects and object type. Now, if I want to change these, for example, if I only want to filter by tables, I will click on tables, and now I have only the tables. Go back in here, you notice it's not the all Access objects is not checked off anymore, but tables is. It is still navigate to category, still has object type. Say I want to change that to table and related views. It changes so that each table and the other objects that are related to that table show up in categories. So these are my categories. One of them is the table's categories: format, movies, rating, and then unrelated objects. I have in my categories, I have a table, I have a report, and I have a form, and it shows me exactly what I have here. Similarly, for my formats category, I have a formats table, formats form. In my movies category, I have a movies table, I have a director's query, and I have a movies form. So look at these icons. Each of these icons tells you what object it is. Okay, that's a table, that's a form, that's a report, and here the directors has a query icon. If I want to change, instead of having all my tables and related views, I'm going to change this to, say, go back to all types, so it gives me only the tables there. And then say I go back to all Access objects, it takes me back to only the Access objects. And here, instead of having all access objects, I only want to see the forms. Click on Forms. It now gives me what forms I have here. Okay, let's go back and show all access objects again. You notice each of these is currently closed. So I'm going to open each of these, collapse, or expand, 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 and then collapse. Okay, so expand, collapse, expand, collapse, expand, collapse, expand here, and collapse here. Okay. Similarly, if you want to expand or collapse or open or close your shutter bar, which is actually the shutter bar for your navigation pane, you have two ways you can do it. Click on these shutter bar open close buttons. It's now closed, collapsed, expanded. Or you can use the double-edged arrow to lessen how much of space it takes up, or to completely close it. There we go. So that's basically your screen, and we have been through everything that you will be learning on the screen. Your File tab here, similar to many others, you do have your info, you have your new, open, save as, close, account and options, right? In the info, you have compact and repair a database. This automatically repairs any small issues that you might have in your database. For example, if you have space being used for unnecessary features, I would say. So if you have spaces which are not being used, if you have zero in any of your formatting, that will also be taking up space. So when you compact it, it will basically remove all unnecessary space that's being occupied, and it'll make your database smaller and more efficient. When it comes to encrypting with a password, you do have the option of putting a password on your database so that not everyone can access all the objects of a database. New blank desktop database. That's what you will be using if you have to start a database from scratch. You will use a blank one. We will not, or we may, but we don't necessarily have to cover custom web apps, which means to upload your database on the web. Okay. When you go to open, this is what you'll be using a lot of, because when you download a database from MyLab, you will save it to your computer, right? So if you want to open that, you will go to your computer and choose whichever folder or wherever you have it. The best way to do this is to start so let's go browse. It takes me to my File Explorer. I will first go to my documents right here and start a new folder, call it Access. I already have a folder by the name of Access. I'm going to say Access, and I'm going to give it a temporary name as 2. Now I have a folder just for my Access. I'm going to cancel out of this and go back into my current database for chapter 1 and go File, Save As. Once you're going to Save As, it gives you the option to save database as or save an object as. Object would be if I had a table open and I wanted to save this table, it would be an object within the database. However, if you want to save the entire database, you will say Save As. Make sure that Save Database, because I don't have any object open, it only gives me Save Database As. Access Database. Okay, it does give you a few older versions if you want to use a different version of Access. It gives you which other versions are compatible here. If you want to save it as a template, it will say ACCTD T template. So access database template. However, if you just save it as an access database, it will say ACCD. Okay. Now, these advanced options, we will be learning about that. The most important one is the backup database. It is a good idea to back up your database. If you have a very large database and you want to make sure that all your changes up until a specific point have been backed up, you would back up a database. When you do that, so if I say back up this database, I'll click on it to select it and say save as. Choose where I want to save it, and notice how the file name, Chapter 1 Scripted Lecture, my initials, and the date is shown here. This date is very important because this is when the backup was last done. Okay, and then you just save that and your database is backed up. Once you make your changes to your database, you worked on it and now you want to save it again, make sure you go in, save as, save database as. Now this time click Save Access Database. Okay, not the backup, Save Access Database, and give it a name, whatever name you want to. Maybe give it a different name here so you know that that's the most recent version of the database with the changes that you have currently made. Whenever you save a database, it will have enable content as your security warning. Always enable content if you want to save the database. Now let's get started with some of the objects we have here. I'm going to close everything to get started. If I want to open a table, I first need to know what tables I have. So I will expand all my tables. And then if I want to open a specific table, let's open the movies table. I have a couple of ways I can do this. I can right click in the navigation pane and say open, or I can double click it and say open. Now, right here you have your table and you have a tab for that table. Looks very similar to Excel, however, it's not like Excel in the way it is laid out. Each of these is a record of a movie within your database. So you have Gone with the Wind, 3 of them. 3 similar movie records here. However, you have 3 Gone with the Wind movie CDs within your inventory. Okay, each of these has a different record number. That's because every record that you have must have a unique identifier. This piece of inventory needs to be identified by a number. This number must be unique. You cannot have 2 unique identifiers within your database, which is the same. Well, that's just conflicting. That whole sentence is conflicting because if there's 2 or 1 movie numbers, they're not unique. So each of these must be unique to identify what you have in your table. Now, if I right click, so let's say I right click on my tab here, it gives me the option to save it, to close it, or to view it in design view and datasheet view. The current view we have here is datasheet view. It is just like a datasheet, a table format, and each of these columns is a field within the table. It stores data based on the fields. Your fields are very important because the field is how you will know what information is stored in that column. For example, title. The title field, all your records here have a title to identify what it is. Your description gives you a description of each of those movies that you have in your database. Of course, the description of like records will be the same. Category is also the same. Star is the same, rating. You have your format, year of production, cost. And if you had to add a field, here's where you would add a field. There's more than one way, so this is just one way to add a field. You will first have to give it a format and then a name. But I will first show you the design view because that's the more appropriate and the more recommended way to add anything to a table. Right click on a table. Currently we are in design view. I'm going to move to currently we are in datasheet view. I'm going to change this to the design view. Very, very different to the datasheet view. The design view is where you would see anything pertaining to the design of your table. Now notice your design view has a contextual tab of its own. It only shows up when you are in design view. The first option allows you to change the view. The second gives you the option of adding a primary key. The primary key in a table must always be the unique identifier. We talked about the unique identifier when we were in table view. For the movie table, the movie number is unique for each of those records that we have, right? So that must be our primary key. The primary key basically allows us to build relationships between tables. So for this table, we have a primary key. If I want to remove the primary key, I will unclick the primary key icon. If I want to designate a primary key, I could designate it by clicking in the field and then clicking primary key. However, this would not work as a primary key because it's not unique. The primary key must be unique. So I'm going to remove it and redesignate it to the movie number, which is the unique key or the unique field in my movies table. Okay, so no repetitions. When I say unique, I mean no repetitions. Your data type. Each field, which is a field, is a column heading, and information stored in that column will be based on the field that you designated. The title is a field, description is a field, category, rating, star, these are all fields. Each of them has different properties. So as I move through the fields, so my first field, movie number, has properties, general properties, listed right here. If I move down to title, it has its own properties. Description has its own properties. Now, movie number, although it is a number, it's being given a short text data type. The reason is the movie number here is not going to be used for calculations. It's being used as a number to identify what's in your database or your table. The data type must be one of these listed here. It could be a data short text, long text, number, date, time, currency, auto number. Auto number is when automatically Access will add it in whenever you enter a new record. Okay, so auto number is one way of giving a table a unique identifier. All of these others are quite self-explanatory. a yes/no field, or an OLE object, a hyperlink, an attachment, or a calculated field, or a lookup wizard. We will learn more about calculated fields, lookup wizards, attachments, hyperlinks, and OLE objects. I think it's in chapter 6, 7, and 8, around then. But till then, we'll be using mostly short text, long text. Long text is unlimited, whereas short text has a limit of the field size. So look now down in your properties. You have a field size, meaning it can only store up to 50 in its field, in its what you put in there. Okay, so that includes spaces or any punctuation, anything you put in there will be counted into that 50. Title also has a limit of 50, whereas long text does not have a limit because you can type in stories into a long text. It takes a lot. Number category, that is, it's a specific long integer which you can do calculations with, which you can, filter, and it gives you the option of querying a database based on specifics which are number related. Okay, a rating is also a number. So again, this here is a long integer, decimal, no decimals, automatic. These are your captions, and as you move from one to the other, you'll see there may be a few changes. You have short text for your star name, for your director name, for movie format has a number. It's now number is different to currency. Currency, as you know, will have a currency sign in the properties, and you can do currency related calculations on it. For a number field, you can do any sort of calculations, but for a currency, usually something like a PMT or any currency related formulas which are inbuilt into Access will work for this. If you want to calculate interest, things like that. Okay, moving on here. Each of these is a field, as I mentioned. If you want to enter a new, to insert a new row, to add a field, you can use your tools on your ribbon, which is your design ribbon, and say insert. It'll automatically insert a row above where your cursor was. If I want to delete this, I'll select it. This is your selector, the little gray box beside in the margin, and say delete. Okay. If I want to insert a new row right at the end, all I do is put my cursor in and start typing. Where possible, give each of your fields a description. It definitely helps when somebody else is looking into your database and needs to know what that field stores. Give it a descriptive little text that which you and others will be able to understand. Okay. Now, if you notice here, year produced is short text. It is not a date field, and it's given only 4. That's because it's only the year. It's not the entire date. Okay. Let's go back now and look at the table again, but this time we're going to look at it in datasheet view. I did not make any changes, so I'm going to say no. Oh, so it's not letting me, so I'm just going to say yes there. And now here I have changed the first record for Gone with the Wind. I put my name as the director. You can go in here, select what you want to change, delete it using your keyboard, or you can select it right up here and delete it in your records group. It'll be deleted. Now, you cannot undo more than one last action. I can undo the delete of Vector Fleming, but I cannot undo what I deleted from this column, from this row here. Okay, so let's go in here and put my name in here. You can put your name. And now if I want to delete it, yes, this was the last action I did, so I can delete it. But if I want to try and delete previous actions, it won't let me. So which means Access only allows you to undo the last action. Okay, put my name back in there. That's basically making changes to an existing record. You can delete, you can select and type something new. If you want to add a new field using your data sheet view, so the view that we are currently in, go to your last column heading. And when you click on that column heading, at the moment it says add, click to add, right? When I click on that, the little arrow here opens up and it gives me all those different data formats that which you saw in the design view, right? Let's say I want to add a short text data format for this new field. I will say short text, and now it gives me the option to type the name of the new field that I'm adding. I'm going to add a field here. I will call it, let's say, actors, or let's say director, producer. I don't have a field here for producer. I just added it. It's added right here. I can go in and start typing the name of the producer. I don't know the name of the producer for Gone with the Wind, but if I do, I could type it in here. Now I'm going to go back into design view, and you notice it gives me the new field that I just added, producer, right? And it says field size 255. Well, that's a little too many pieces of data for a field size for a producer. So I'm going to reduce that to 50. I don't think any producer's name will be longer than 50 letters. Okay, so there we have added. So now I'm going to go back into data sheet view, say yes because I did make a change. Okay, and here we have. Now we can go in here and type whatever we want to add to each of these. So whenever you add a field, once you have a bunch of records in your table, you need to go into each one of these and type in that piece of information. Now, I don't want to keep this. I want to delete it. There's a few ways to delete it. One is I can select it from here, right click and delete. When right click anywhere within the column, and I could say delete from here, right to the last, delete field. Okay, that's one way to do it. The other way to do it is go to my records here and delete, or I could actually also just click delete on my keyboard and say yes to permanently delete that. Okay, so bunch of ways to delete, bunch of ways to edit records and information stored in each of your records, and to add a field. Now, what you need to know is each of these has a width. You can change those little features or little formatting options by right-clicking in that column, and then right here you have field width. It will give you the option of changing the field width. I'm going to change the field width, say for the description. I will select it first, right click it and say field width. Let's increase the field width to 50. Right? As simple as that. I could do a few other things here. Freeze fields, so you won't be able to change much within it. Unhide, hide, right? Oh, sorry. If you freeze it, then you can move everything else just like you would do in your Excel, and it would be a field that you can then move everything but this field, right? And here, let's go in and say insert a field. It will allow you to insert a field right before this by default. If I want to move that, I will click it, and when you see the black line show up in the borders of that field, you just move it to where you want. That black line will give you wherever you want to drop it. That's where you should have that black line. Okay. All of these are similar to what, all these record options are similar to what you will see if you right click over here. Right? You can sort A to Z. So I'm going to delete this one, say yes, and let's go to say the stars. Select it, right click it, and sort A to Z. As simple as a click, and now you have your table for the movies sorted by stars. And how would you know that? If you look at this little arrow, it is pointing upwards, right? Look here. If you right click, select and right click, you also have the A to Z selected. So you know it's been sorted alphabetically. Okay, I could go Z to A. It goes back to Z to A. Okay, right that way. Descending and ascending is here too. So if I want to click on director and I'll say ascending, it has two sorts added, kind of an advanced sort. It is sorting by star and then by director. So if you notice, Tom Cruise is the second one here, but here it has it sorted by A, Andy Fickman, B, B, C, 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 and within the C it has then sorted it by star. So right to left is what you need to remember. Whatever you sort on the right will be your main sort, and within that is then your next level of sorting. Okay, so now at the moment we have on our right director, so it's sorted from A to Z by director, and within all the A's it then has it sorted by A to Z by star. So within the C we have sorted here. Let's change that sort. I'm going to make it A to Z, right? And now you have the correct sorting order. And then I'm going to sort this by A to Z. There we go. Okay. What else do we have? In chapter 1, let me take a quick look here. If I want to add a record, so the next thing we're going to talk about in chapter 1 is the navigation bar at the bottom here. You have your records showing. If I click the first record button, of course, this selection will move to the first record. So here, it moves to the first record. So now I have selected my first record. Sometimes databases are very, very long and have more than thousands of records in it, right? So if you know which record you want, this is an easy way of navigating to the record you're looking for. If I want to go to my last record, it gives me that option too. So I go to the last record. If I want a specific record, say if I want record, let's go 3, it'll take me to record 3, the third record by 3rd of 24. So in this I have 24 records. Say if I want to go to the 6th record, I can type it in there. If I want to move through them, it will move my selection through each of the records that I have in the table. If I want to add a new record, it gives me that little last, the last arrow pointing to the right with the star, takes me to the end of the table and allows me to add a new record to it. The other thing you need to know here is the find option. So the find in Access is a little different. it gives you a few more options based on what you're looking for. So I clicked on Find. I went in, sorry, and make sure you're not selecting anything, and just put your cursor anywhere in the table and go and click on your Find group. Click on Find. This is your Find and Replace box, which you are all very familiar with. You have Find, you have Replace. So depending on what you want to find, you will put it in here. So I say I want to find report, the word report. Now, current field is this current selected field, the where I am, right? I want to say look in current document and any part of fields. Okay, so it's going to look in the whole document, and if any part of a field has the word report in it. Now I'm not talking about the field name, I'm talking about the field itself. So for each record you have different fields within your table, right? So it's going to look at the entire document, and if any part of a field comes back with the word report in it, it will pull that up for me. Let's go. You see it has report here, so it pulled it up, my first report. And as you see, I have Minority Report in 3 records showing up under the title field. Okay, you can even match case, or in most cases you might not want to. If you want to go down only from the record that you selected, you will say down or up. Most of the time you will use all. If I wanted to replace the word, I could then put another word to replace, and it would find and replace it for me right here. Okay. Here you also have the option of going to the first, or going to the last, or going to a new record, just like you would do in your navigation bar. Okay, you can select all and unselect it. This is your text formatting, very similar to what you're used to. You can bold text, italicize text, right? I'm going to just remove them. Good options here, but remember, in tables you don't really want to do too much formatting, because a table is more used to view things on a screen. Printing a table is not that productive. If you want to print a table, you would probably want to change it to a PDF, or you might want to change it to a report using specific fields and then print it. Okay, so I'm going to just briefly go in. First, I'm going to remove sort. So I've removed all those sorts that we put in here. Let's show you that again. So I have it here sorted by director. If I want to change that, descending order, ascending order, or remove. In the next video, I'm going to show you filtering and sorting in more detail, as well as a few other things which are basic to tables and to forms and reports. For this video, I'm going to end right here. We are nearly at 45 minutes, and I think that gives you a good idea of the basics of Access. Okay then, thank you for listening. Bye-bye.